Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
The JAMODI podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
And you nailed it, because when you started off talking about the phrase that I feel like if you're a player, you heard a coach say it, and then we've all said it, which is you guys don't have to like each other, but you have to respect each other. You have to learn to work together. But you're right. Why not strive to get them to like each other? Because if you truly have, now obviously at the high school level, for most schools, we don't get to choose our players. And, I do trust, I trust that God's going to bring the right people on the bus. What if he brings somebody that is a little bit of a challenge, that does have some quirks, that does have something with their personality that it just doesn't mix with everybody, but why not have a goal as a coach to create an environment? It's like the same thing with shooting. If we only had more shooters, we would do this or that. Well, create them. Figure out a way to create an environment where shooters are cultivated, where that grows. I think it can be the same thing with relationships, and you nailed it. If you're hoping that it happens during team practice time, in the locker room, right after, before practice, I don't know. I don't know if that's the best environment for it, because a lot of times tensions are high. People's guards are up. They're emotional in those moments. But if you take them away, if you spend time away from basketball, if you have them over to a house, in a place, on a retreat where guards can come down and we can start to learn each other's stories a little bit more. That's how I think that's possible.
Yeah, I think Chris Beard was the one that coined the phrase, you don't win with 3:30 guys, right? Most people practice at 3:30. And I think that is the same off the floor. You can't expect to just show up at 3:30 with these guys and expect them to trust you. You need to be visible in all other aspects of their life as much as you can. We have families, we have kids, and those guys need to see that. I have missed a weight workout to tell them, look, I'm going to JT's baseball game. Are you cool with that? And they love it and they understand that, right? And to kind of allude to what you said before, how do you deal with a problem kid? I think people are messy, man. I'm messy, right? Well, my dad, growing up, he's an assistant pastor, and not to get too preachy here, but one of his favorite Bible verses is, where no oxen are, the crib is clean, right? But great strength comes from the ox. When dealing with people, you're going to deal with a lot of crap, right? That's just a better word, but great strength comes from that ox, man. You got to understand that if you're going to be in leadership, if you're going to be, I just want to coach. Well, that's part of coaching, man. Dealing with people's messy personalities. I coached a kid 2 years ago that was just, a handful, to say the least, and was he just could not trust. He comes back from Christmas break, and I find out, his dad's bipolar, and kicks him out of and burns all of his stuff over Christmas break, and watches his dad, beat up women over the time. You wonder why that guy doesn't trust men. Right? And to just go, man, forget that kid. That doesn't make his behavior okay. That just means you need to have a little bit different approach with this guy than you do this guy over here. So I just think not being okay with disrespectful behavior, but showing some empathy and some patience with some guys to try and get them to where they know how to behave and how to act and things like that, instead of just going, man, they're not about the team. They don't get it. I think that preserves our ego a little bit. I think we need to understand that that's a human being sitting on the other side, and they ain't all going to be what we want them to be, and we're not all that they want us to be. So if we all understand that, I think we would have a lot more empathy and compassion in trying to to deal with those personalities. And if they see that like you have their best interest at heart, that kids want to be coached, man. Like if that kid trusts you, you earn the right to be able to talk to him a certain way or hold him accountable. I mean, it's hard to walk in at 3:30 and go, and get after some kid that he don't know you at all. And I'm not. I love Tony. I'm not Tony Bennett, and he's awesome. I'm a little bit of a barker sometimes, but like it's gonna be those guys. I'm probably gonna pat him on the butt like 5 minutes after. Right? He's probably gonna put his arm around me about 5 minutes after because we're in there competing and emotions are high. But you have, in my opinion, you have to at least strive, and you may not get that there with a lot of kids, and that's part of it, man. But you at least need to be striving that you do want to like each other, that you do want your players to like and enjoy being around you. You don't want to be their friend, but at some point you do. You want to be there and be that person for them. So, not to get too deep in the weeds or too corny, but I do think that stuff matters if you're trying to win.
Coach, it's okay if we get deep in the weeds. Don't ever apologize for that. I think there's so many ways to do this. I don't really know where I am or how I line up on the, I don't know, Bobby Knight to Tony Bennett scale. Like, I don't know where I am. But I think you can be successful and you can create relationships all along that spectrum. Care has to be involved. But if you don't care, I think a soft approach, you'll get completely run over and they won't take you seriously. If you don't care, that screaming is going to be dull real quick and they won't listen to you either. But either way can work if they know that you care.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
You have this togetherness now with your program, and now you're going to drop the hammer of discipline on them. How does discipline work in with your culture?
Yeah, I think discipline is also another buzzword that gets thrown around there too. I think
we're disciplined. Yeah. Like,
what does that mean? And for me, that just means, look, and you kind of allude to coaching styles. Like styles wins fights. There isn't a perfect way. If there was, everybody would be doing. There are trends and fads and where the game is going, and I get that. But I believe in just choosing your way, right? Like we have to identify, like identity casts vision, right? Like so, we need to identify what we are and who we are, and then just be disciplined and not wavering from that, right? Like we can't give up on the plan if it's 3 games in and it's not as pretty as what we want it to be. Our plan is
we'll sniff that out real quick.
Yeah, no doubt. Like if you don't believe in it, they certainly aren't going to. So, discipline is, all right, these are, and, non-negotiables, we have those, but you're going to work in more than just your non-negotiables. But again, just saying what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it is what discipline is, right? And we are a man-to-man team that, we a little old school, we press for 40 minutes. We're not necessarily, wild and run and jump and all that stuff. We have ways to dial it up, dial it back, but it's more about the wear down and the playing 9 to 10 guys and really getting after them and having that gnat in your face for 40 minutes, where we're telling you to mess up, right? And then having our defense turn into offense, so with the getting 3 of the baseline and getting them moving on both sides. So we're really trying to keep it simple. There are other things, we play off 2 feet here. That's another one that a lot of people like to do. That's a non-negotiable for us. We're disciplined in that. No, we'll have public praise and public shame in film. Man, you came off 1 foot here. That's not what we do. Came off 2 feet here. I'm running around high-fiving, unbelievable. Playing off 2 right there and being disciplined there. I think discipline is what you emphasize, and you will be undisciplined in the things that you don't, and you cannot be disciplined in everything. You have to choose those few things that you value as a coach and live with the things that you're not going to be. Like I just said, we're never going to be Gonzaga or, lead the country in points per possession on the offensive end. I'd love to. I'd love to try to be both of them, but that's probably not what we're going to be. When we have been really good, we're one of the better defensive teams in the league, and we're one of the better rebounding teams in the league, and we lead in assists on the offensive end. We share the ball, and you identify and you value those things, and you shame those things that don't agree with it, right? So whatever it is you emphasize and you choose, it just needs to be clear, and it does need to be words. There do need to be clear consequences to not doing the things that we said we were going to. If you said we're going to close on every catch and no mental drive, and you're not going to catch it every time either, by the way, but you need to catch it as much as you can and really hammer in those things that matter to you and live with the things that you're not going to be able to control, because you can't control all of it.
Coach, there's so many nuggets there and so many roads that we could go down with that, but you're right on the money with identity, knowing who you are. Rick Torbett said it takes you 10 years to figure out who you are as a coach. I don't know if that's exact, but it does seem to be right around there. You maybe start to figure out what you can tolerate, what style of play you're okay to lose in. Like that's a unique way of looking at it. Like for us, it's running and gunning, and I am okay with us losing running and gunning. I don't think I'd be okay with us losing walking the ball up the floor and running a lot of sets. But that's identity. There's a lot of coaches that are super successful doing it that way, and it goes back to like you said, and I love the way you articulated like discipline. People think discipline is we make our guys run for everything. That's a part of discipline. That's physical discipline. That's harsh discipline. But discipline is also a stick-with-itness to what you said you were going to do, how you guys were going to play. And I immediately think of Nate Oates. Nate Oates, like at the college level, if I could be like somebody, if that's that D1 level, how do you scale that back to 5A taps? It's grapevine faith, because discipline doesn't mean you don't take a lot of threes. Discipline doesn't mean you walk the ball up the floor. They are very disciplined in racing, in shooting the first open three, in shooting the next open three, and all of those after that, and then attacking the paint and not shooting mid-range. They are incredibly disciplined in that, and he is sold out. He's all in, and they will not deviate from that way of thinking. There is discipline in that as well.
Oh, and I love what you said, because we get in things like this to where if you do those things, you are your biggest salesman, right? Like you should, this is our way. This is what we do because it's who you are as a coach. And if you're not who you are, those kids will read right through, right?
And that's the terrifying part though, right, Coach? Is that what's the major difference between assistant chair and head chair is that your decisions and the direction that the culture goes and the discipline that your style of play goes, it's all on you. Yeah. Like that's the tough part.
Yeah. Well, and again, and I couldn't be more opposite than Nate Oates. And I love Alabama and I love what they're doing. If I had to identify somebody, it'd be a Kelvin Sampson. I would like to be those guys if we could. I would like to be those get after it and rough and tough defense. And you know what? Both of those are highly successful.
Yeah.
Purdue didn't shoot 100 threes to win that game. Now they threw it in the post. Alabama shot 100 threes and they won. And they're great. Just like you said, figure out what it is you are and what you believe in and sell out to it, man. Don't go with, I know what I'm not. I know what I am. And I know what that doesn't mean we're fixed mindset set. We're always growing. We're always trying to improve, but we want to be authentic. We want to be master teachers of the subject that we're giving to our players. And Nate Oates is a master teacher of what they're doing over there. And there's so many coaches that are. And there's so much information out there of we could sit down and watch on TV this weekend for the Final Four and get it, man. It was successful. I just need to go do that. Well, if that's not what you believe and you're not a master teacher and put in the time, like he's put in a lot of time, I'm sure you have too, in, all right, how do I implement that into practice? Right? You don't get to choose your players, but if you do, you better choose players that fit that way.
Yeah.
I want to be Houston and be rough and tough and recruit, not rough and tough guys. I want to, it fit that thing that you say, talking about players or, if you don't get to choose them, does the development of what I'm working on, the weight room and the skill set and all that stuff match the team that I want to be? Like I can't just go with every fad in the wind. I want to grow, but I want to be clear on who we are and be okay with that. I'm not that.
And that's I think what you're getting to is the art of coaching. Is you have this idea, this vision, like you said early on, but there is a part where you got to make sure the vision that it's realistic, like that your guys can actually do. I remember years ago we were trying to do the Grinnell system, because if you're talking running and gunning, like that's it's the farthest that you can go down that path. Is that 5 in, 5 out every minute, shoot 75 threes in a game, don't care about anything but how fast, like that's it. And we're trying to do that. And like we lost one game 106 to 100, 32 minutes, no shot clock. So that's a good pace for a high school game. And one of my buddies came and watched us play, and he's like, man, I just said like, hey man, what'd you think? Like, what'd you think of that? Almost expecting for him to be like, hey, like your guys are fighting. Like it's exactly what you want, even though we lost. And he's like, I don't know if they can do what you're asking them to do. Like, what do you mean? He's like, you just, you don't have horses that really like are, in his mind, creating the live ball turnovers to getting a lot of the positives to pressuring. We were getting all the negatives out of pressuring, but not many of the So, but again, maybe going back to the community of coaches, guys that will tell you the truth, send game film to your friends and say, hey, what am I missing here? What do I not see? But going back to a realistic view, and I think the art of it is not necessarily scrapping something or adding something, but taking and adjusting little bits, little differences or variations to what you really want. That might be the difference in your players truly being able to grasp it.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.